It's been
right?
hectic for you too, running a business during these crazy times.
Well, and then, we have a big distraction that we've been watching you guys. So, today's a slow for the business. Nobody's walking around. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
we spend
bad
so much
weather.
time just, yeah, watching you guys. And then, you're doing great. And then, this is a great program, I guess.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to real quick. Oops. Yeah, there we go. Um, so, um, Yeah, so we're so thrilled to have you join us today because you are also a Bruminary. So Bruminary Gone Pro, but in a sort of different way than
Yeah.
the panel that we spoke to this morning. And I really am so excited to learn more about sake. Russell and I we were so lucky to be able to go to Japan, not this past holiday break, but the holiday break before that. We really like tried to like we were just so like excited by all the different like culinary and like
Uh-huh.
sake experiences that you can't get here. And so I would love to just sort of learn more about how you came to open your sake brewery, starting by when did you start homebrewing sake and what led to
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So I think I started like 6 years ago when we are still in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where we lived for like 10 years. And, we threw up parties to our local, American friends. And then it's been always a frustration for me that there's no sake that we can serve.
Mm-hmm.
The sake available in the US is either like the 2-for-1 hot sake that you get at the sushi shop. That is what I used to drink when I was in college, that sort.
Yeah,
Or you can get a good sake from the local liquor store, but that's like 3 times
right,
overpriced than it should be. So
right.
we always ended up having like local craft beer or like a wine. And that's been always a frustration. But when I started brewing sake, I met a couple of home brewers, beer home brewers. And then they kind of inspired me to start brewing my own sake. So first guy was one that I met in India when we were there for 2 years for work assignment. And the guy who worked for U.S. Embassy, and he was a home brewer. And
Oh, cool.
the part of the India that we were in was like half dry, so we didn't have a good access to good beer. I still
Mm-hmm.
remember that every time I see a can of Budweiser, it was like, oh, this is real beer. I can drink, something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah. But anyway, so he was brewing a really good beer, and he had like Alfonso Mango IPA or something like that. And that he did that out of necessity because there's no good beer available. So he kind of inspired me a little bit. And then back in Nashville, I started seriously thinking about, hey, can I brew at that time beer? I was more on the beer side. And then I met with my older friend, and he told me that, hey, making beer is not that difficult. It's like as easy as brewing a tea.
It's
That's
kind of
an
true.
insult. That's
Yeah,
an
no, it's
insult.
kind of
But
true.
you know, so I was like, okay, I can brew a tea, so maybe I can brew beer. And then the last person I met, he's another older friend, but he told me that, hey, Shinobu, now everybody's brewing beer. Why don't you brew something else like sake? And that never occurred to me in my mind because it's illegal in Japan. There's no
Oh, that's
home
right.
brewing,
Hmm.
right? So I never thought about that, but I was like, why not? I've been complaining about not having the access to a good sake. So that's how I started.
And yeah, so just to go off of that, as you mentioned, we've primarily been, talking about homebrewing beer here, but our club has really been very curious about what goes into making sake. I
Hmm.
think inspired a lot by your sake brewery opening up, and so I'd love to just sort of walk through a bit what that's like, and some of the main differences since you've done both between
Yeah.
brewing sake and brewing beer.
Yeah. So just a disclaimer, I never brewed beer.
Okay, but you've seen it.
My,
You've seen the
yeah,
process.
I've
Yeah.
seen it, but I've never brewed beer, and then also the license I got was a winery license. So I don't
Uh-huh.
know why I'm here, but you know, but that being said, I'm telling everybody that sake is very similar to beer. Although it's called rice wine, sometimes it's more like rice beer. And you know like 90% of the secret of sake making already.
Hmm.
So yeah. So it's very similar. We use rice as a source of the starch, or you use barley, right? So the same
Hmm.
thing. And for the enzymes to convert starch to sugar, you use malt, right? Malt
Right.
has all the enzymes to do a mashing. Instead of malt, we use a fungus called koji, and that's a little bit exotic. But what koji does is exactly the same as what malt does. It's just there to do a saccharification of starch
Hmm.
in the rice into sugar.
Hmm.
After that, it's the same that we just have a sake yeast, but that's a variety of the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, right? It's ale yeast. So,
Okay.
yeah, the sake yeast does the same thing that your beer yeast does. And then voila, you get beer, I get sake. So it's very similar. The one difference, apart from this fungus thing, is you do a hot side and a cold side completely separated, right? So you do the mashing to make a sugar or the wort first,
Yep.
and then you go to a fermentation,
Right.
right? So it's a completely separated two different processes. In sake making, somehow we decided to do everything together,
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
Interesting.
So saccharification and fermentation happens in the same tank, in the same environment, right? So
Wow.
yes, the enzymes to make sugar and yeast, they coexist in the same tank. And the fermentation, saccharification slash fermentation process takes like 4 weeks. Oh, so it's in your analogy, it's more like, okay, let's forget about the mashing, but just put the barley and malt and yeast and water into the same tank, and then let's crash it to the lager temperature and wait for 4 weeks. That's how you make sake.
Oh, that's super interesting. So all
Yes,
of those organisms can sort of coexist, like the
yes,
fungus that is turning the starch into sugar, and then the
yep,
yeast that is eating that sugar, they all kind of can be in the same environment together.
exactly. The challenge is the saccharification. The ideal temperature for the saccharification is like quite high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is a temperature that yeast cannot tolerate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeast will die at that temperature, right? That's why you wait until you crush the wort so that you can
Right.
pitch the yeast, right?
Right.
So in order for us to have a good environment for the yeast, we'll do the hot side in a very low temperature too. So that's not ideal for the mashing because it's not efficient,
Does
right?
it just take
So
longer or is
that take
it
longer.
okay?
That take longer. So initially, there's no sugar at all in the sake mash, but the mold and the enzymes that mold produce will gradually turn the starch into sugar. At the same time, yeast consume that sugar into alcohol. So fermentation is much slower and longer. And then that's why it takes like 4 weeks or so for sake to be done.
That's so interesting. I'm curious, is there a reason to not do the two different steps, like to not have that higher temperature sack step and then chill it and put the yeast in, or it's just
I
not the way that it's done?
Probably. I don't. I think the people in Japan like hundreds of years ago were
Yeah,
not
they figured it out.
as smart as Germans or something like that. I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's
And then
so,
everything is open fermentation too.
okay, interesting,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So compared to like your level of sanitization,
Yeah.
sake making is like darky.
Interesting. So are those tanks behind you what they ferment in, what the
Yes,
sake ferments in?
yes. So we do have two active fermentation going on,
Cool.
and the temperature is like 50. So it's like a lager temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And the mash stayed there for 4 weeks. And at the end of the fermentation, once fermentation ends, our mash is still like a very thick, like rice soup, like
Mm-hmm.
congee texture. So that needs to be pressed. We call it pressing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like a wine press, cider press type of operation to separate the liquid from the solid, and then see liquid being sake, right?
Okay.
So that's the finale of the sake making. That at the end of the
Right.
fermentation, we press the mash, and then we get sake.
That's so cool.
Mm.
It's interesting, it seems like sake home brewing is, well, at least from my view, I may not have, I may not have visibility on it, but it seems like it's, still sort of a growing hobby. There aren't that many
Mm.
people doing it. And I hear stories, when I talk to homebrewers who've been brewing for a while that like, oh, it used to be so hard to get beer ingredients. I'm curious how you source your ingredients like koji that maybe are not as commonly available or like homebrew shops may not be stocking it as much as they do like the other ingredients for
Yeah,
brewing.
yeah. So now I make everything here, but
Right.
when I started, actually, there's a one home brew shop in Portland, Oregon, that they carry all the ingredients that you need as a sake home brewer. So somehow Portland is probably like a birthplace of the sake home brewing culture, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the home brew shop called FH Steinberg. Yeah, so you can buy all the ingredients online, but if everybody start brewing sake in luminaries, I believe that John and Doug will start carrying koji.
I bet they will.
Yeah,
I know they
they
already
did carry. Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah,
carry
they
some
did
stuff
carry sake
already.
east. They
Yeah,
do have
yeah, I've
sake
seen
east.
that. It's the
Mm,
koji. That's the thing that we have to find.
yeah.
I know, I think I remember, I wasn't at the swap, but I think you brought some koji yeast to a swap
Yes.
once, and everyone was so excited about it and talking about it on the
Yeah.
Slack channel for a while. So, yeah,
Yeah. And
I think there's a lot of excitement.
Roman made a sake out from that koji.
Ah, Roman, are you
Yes.
here? I didn't get a chance to have it, I don't think, but he is a prolific brewer, so I'm not
Hmm.
surprised.
Hmm.
Alex Biederman asks if there are any crossover with sake makers using grains other than rice, but following the same process. Like, could you do something like that?
I think so. I made one. I don't know if it's called sake, but I made a barley based sake.
Cool.
So yeah, I just swapped rice with barley.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of using your beer making process, I use my sake making process, right? So I inoculated barley with koji mold and I made barley koji, and steamed barley and then everything in the same tank and the same process. It turned out to be very interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. Tell me more.
I as a sake brewer, I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this. But when I let that try with other beer brewers, they're like, okay, no, it's interesting. It's not that bad, you can sell it. So maybe I'll try sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
could be
it,
interesting.
yeah, but it's the same thing. Like you can use any type of grain to apply the sake making process. So inoculate the mold onto whatever the grain that you have, right? So you can do corn, you can do quinoa, you can do
Cool.
wheat. I think it's possible. I don't know the taste though.
Yeah, so it's just sort of like an alternative, as you said at the beginning, to malting the grain. You're using
Yes,
the mold to do that instead.
exactly.
So I think we're speaking to you at Kato Sakeworks,
Yep,
and which opened recently.
yep.
When did you first decide that you were going to, go all in and open professionally?
So that was when we were still in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I was home brewing at the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen. Oh, and then the first batch I invited all my friends, and I had a crazy party when we played sake. And the second and the third, and at one point, one of my friends came to me saying that, hey, Shinobu, I never liked sake. All the sake that I had before smelled like a loving alcohol, and I had a
Oh
horrible
no.
hangover. So I
Yeah.
never liked sake. And I know that that's like a village American perception of sake,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah, for sure.
she was like, okay, hey, Shinobu, this is the first time I truly enjoy drinking sake. And I have my parents' Thanksgiving dinner. Can I buy a bottle? And then I was like, oh, that's a very great compliment. But first, I'm not licensed, and then I cannot sell you a bottle. Oh, by the way, I only have like 5 bottles out of
Right.
my like
They're
a
precious.
5 gallon
Yeah.
batch, right? And then sake
Yeah.
making takes 2 months.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but she was not the last one to ask me something like that. And, I told you that I've been complaining about the current situation of the sake market in the US. And then
Right.
I was like, okay, I've been complaining about this. Maybe, I can do this. And then at that time, we had some kind of life event. And then my wife got the dream job in Tokyo. And she was like, okay, I'm definitely need to get jobs. So, I'll support you whatever you do, but I have to go to Tokyo. And also we got a green card, so I was like, okay, maybe I can do something else. Well, maybe I should do this seriously. So
Oh, cool.
I moved to Brooklyn 3 years ago.
Everything sort of fell into place, I guess, like in a way, except obviously you're opening, I'm sure, under different circumstances than what you had initially imagined. So how, I know that I'm about to taste some of your sake that
Yep.
I'm so happy that we got to order, but how have you sort of pivoted to opening under these circumstances?
So I don't know if I pivoted well, but we originally had a plan to do an opening, and then initially our focus was on the tap room, right,
Mm-hmm.
where people can come and then try and we can interact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kept all our sake. Well, first it took like 8 months to get the license, and it was a long process. But finally we got that, and we kegged all the sake, and did all the practice how to run the bar and then things, because I never worked in the hospitality industry. And we had like 1 weekend of soft opening, and then this lockdown happened.
Mm-hmm.
And our tasting room is super small, so it's smaller than Bitande's still shop. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no social distancing or anything possible, right?
Right.
So okay, maybe it's not a great idea to do this. And then we shifted everything to pick up orders, right? And we have to re-bottle everything. We had everything in a keg, so that needs to be bottled.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we realized that, oh, we don't have a website set up for the ordering, so that's have to be done. And then at the very end, we were almost ready, and we realized that we don't have enough paper bags. All those small
All these
things that we never.
details. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and some of the paper baskets are already sold out on Amazon, so I have to wait. And then we started slowly doing the local pickups, and then we added shipping to the New York State. So now we can ship to the New York State. So the same thing, like, okay, we have to order all the boxes. We have to figure out how to take care of the ordering, and then, printing the labels, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then at the very end, we realized that, oh, we don't have shipping tapes.
Oh,
And then
gosh.
again, and then that's all sold out on Amazon. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then once we were ready for the shipping, we realized that, oh, our initial batch is running out, so we don't have enough sake to ship.
Wow. Yeah, it's really
Yeah, but
amazing
we are
just
surviving.
yeah, I mean, I have to say it's just so amazing and inspiring to see how businesses have really just sort of taken this really terrible, unexpected circumstance and just sort of made it work in a way,
Mm, mm.
and I'd love to, sort of know, it seems like you've had to shift over to handling a lot of logistics that you weren't planning to deal with necessarily in the beginning.
Yeah.
What's a like typical day like for you at the brewery?
So normally we do rice steaming in the morning. So
Mm-hmm.
we steam our rice a lot, and then almost every day for different recipes and things. So in the morning we do rice steaming, and then in the afternoon we do more like a finishing side. So like pressing, bottling, pasteurizing, filtering, those type of thing. And in between, we do a koji making. Koji making is like 48 hours process, and it's completely separated from the the batch making.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we make koji once or twice a week. So that's a kind of typical cadence. Yeah.
Wow. So, is koji making koji anything like the kind of maintenance that many people in our club are obsessed with, which is keeping their sourdough starters fed? Is there any similarities or anything like that?
Yeah. Or more like similar to a malt
Mm-hmm.
making. So I think most of the brewers are familiar with how malt stores make malt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like a 7 days process to take care, and then you need to have proper, water absorption
Ah,
or like
okay.
humidity and the temperature, and then you need to take care of all the malt, how they start sprouting, something like that. So that's very similar to koji making.
So very precise sort of steps and temperatures that you have to be
Yes,
kind of
yeah,
maintaining
yeah.
throughout.
It's more like an agricultural process.
Interesting. It's so
Hmm.
amazing that you can do all of that in your brewery.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, so as I mentioned, I have two of your sakes. I'd love to talk about the sakes that you have currently available. I think, two of the three.
Yep.
So first I think you recommended starting with the Junmai, right?
Yes, yes.
So this is the Junmai sake.
Yep.
I don't know if y'all can see it. I've also put a link in the chat where you can see where the brewery is, what the hours are to go pick up, and also the shipping details. But so I'm going to try it. Oh, it's so delicious. So I feel like it's got a tiny like note of honey, like maybe not
Hmm.
sweet, but just like almost like a honey malt note, um,
Hmm.
slightly floral maybe. I'd love to know more. I'm not very experienced in sake tasting, so I'd love to know how you would describe it or
Yeah.
have us think about it.
And then like a flavor side, it's more like a Belgium beer kind of
Yes,
flavor, I'd say,
yes, estery.
right?
Yeah,
Because
for
it's a
sure.
yeah, it's the same yeast, right?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So some sake, I'm only talking about the craft sake, but some sake more has the flavor towards apple and pears, while some has more like a banana and melon and something like that. But that's
Hmm.
like a typical flavor that you feel from the very delicate craft sake.
Yeah, it's really delicate.
Hmm.
And I definitely, now that you mentioned Belgian, I see the analogy between the
Right.
two. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so then the next one that I have is the Nigori, which is a cloudy sake, I guess.
Yep.
I
Yep.
love cloudy sakes. I feel like it's difficult to find them, or at least for me. And so I'm gonna try this one. It seems to me maybe a bit drier
Hmm.
and also like maybe it's just in my mind because it's cloudy, but like it has a little bit more body, perhaps.
Hmm.
But yeah, how would you describe it?
And then probably a little bit more mouthfeel,
Yeah, for
right? Because
sure.
rice particles will coat your mouth. And this is a good sake to pair with a spicy food, not like as
Mm,
spicy as like a, you know, Indian spicy, but at least like a Mexican spicy. And
mm-hmm.
also
I
some
can see that.
fatty food,
Mm-hmm.
because the rice particles will cut the wash the fat out.
Yeah, I can see this being delicious with food. Such good pairings.
Mhm.
What kinds of pairings would you recommend with the Junmai sake?
Junmai is more versatile, I'd say, while our sake is winier compared to like a typical sake at the sushi shop. So
Mm-hmm.
you can pair this up to like, like typically your everyday food, like a, marinara pizza or something like that.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
idea.
yeah. If you go to a really loud American food, maybe that overpowers this Junmai, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's hard. Well, what we do have only at the tap room is called the Nama, which is unpasteurized version. So
Uh-huh.
typical sake is pasteurized, and then pasteurization tame the flavor a little bit, while unpasteurized one has much more like a burst of the flavor kind, and it's very loud and noisy and expressive like your American food.
Ah.
right? Yeah.
I like that analogy. Is
Hmm.
that the unpasteurized sake, is that called moromi or
No,
no?
molomi is the unfinished mash. So
Okay.
yeah, it's like mash or not a word, but everything in the tank is molomi until it's pressed,
Hmm.
and then molomi becomes sake
Got
after the
it.
pressing. Yes.
We had the opportunity to try moromi, and it is also quite interesting and delicious just to
Hmm.
drink it, unpressed.
Yeah.
We had a question from someone in Iowa who homebrews sake, and
Interesting.
Nathan asks, "What percentage of glycol slash water do you use for cooling the moromi?" I truly do not understand what that means, so I'd love to know what Nathan is
Glycol
talking about.
water. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One, two, three.
One, two, three.
So yeah, yeah. I dilute glycol with 3 times more water. That's a very technical question. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, someone who clearly knows what they're talking about. So is it a
Yeah.
process of actually like surrounding the moromi with glycol
Yeah.
to chill it?
Yeah, all the tanks are glycol
Mm,
jacketed and then chilled, and because I need to keep everything in the temperature like lager,
hmm.
so most of the time it stays under 50 Fahrenheit. Yeah, so I need to have a glycol system running 24/7,
Oh, wow.
and the glycol temperature is usually like 30, 34, 5, 6, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that was a really technical question.
Yes,
That's
yes.
cool. That's interesting. It's cool. It's cooler than brewing even lagers, I guess. You have to keep it
Hmm.
at like a very cool temp. Alex Biederman is curious what the batch size is for your fermenters.
So this one, I'm sorry, I'm going to the metrics now, but
That's fine.
yeah, it's 300 liters tank, and it's open fermentation, and also sake mash produce a lot of foams.
Mm.
So we need to have quite a bit of the head space. Otherwise, we'll have like a foam overflow, which I had once, and it was so messy.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't post that on the Instagram, but we had a problem. But anyway, 300 liters tank, and our mash size or molomi size is about like 200 liters, so 2/3 of the tank.
Okay.
And then from there, I can produce 100, probably like 130 liters of sake, something like that. And remaining will be the solid part. It's like your spent grain. But after the
Hmm.
pressing, we have solid rice leaves left over.
Do you do anything with that? Or can you do anything with that?
Yeah, so well, we have a lot of leftover. So we are
Hmm.
kind of telling everybody that if you want to use that for whatever, like your sourdough or marinade or pickling,
Oh,
let me know,
cool.
and I can give you like a bucket full of the spent rice anytime. But
All right.
we've been doing marinade these days, and it's a perfect marinade for fish or something like that. But we've been doing a pork chop marinade, so a little bit. It's called sake katsu, but sake left over.
Hmm.
Very like a rice cake type of thing with a lot of nutrients and enzymes still active in it, and then that tenderized meat, and then make the protein into umami and an amino acid. So we make a marinade, and marinade meat for like 3 days in the fridge, and that makes the best pork chop ever.
That sounds amazing. I think
Mm.
we're gonna have to try to find a way to come out to your brewery to take you
Yes,
up on
yes,
picking up some. Um,
yeah, yeah. Or maybe I'll bring that to Vita and Estelle so that they can do a shipping instead of me doing
I think Bitter
that.
Nesters is on here, so take note, guys. And I know we're a little over time, but you mentioned that you had a third type of sake, more newly available. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, so that is this unpasteurized version one. So it's fresh out from the tank and then
Oh,
no
cool.
treatment at all. Yeah, so this is only available at the tap room because I cannot ship it
Hmm.
to outside. And then also we are experimenting some pilot batch. So the latest one is million. And if you're cooking person, you know what million is. And a million is like a Japanese sweetener or that you use for
Oh,
teriyaki sauce or something like that. But
oh,
it
cool.
used to be a drink, adult drink, like way back when, like 1,000 years ago. And we are making a drinkable million. And then I think we'll, it's just a limited batch, but, you know.
Super cool.
Mm.
So maybe we can just tell everyone quickly like how they can get your products and also how they can support your brewery. So I know you're doing, I put the link to your website, which by the way, you would never know that you had to pivot so quickly to create because it's beautiful and so easy to use, but so beautifully designed. But your brewery is in Williamsburg, is that right? And
It's in Bushwick.
Bushwick,
Yeah,
Bushwick.
East Williamsburg, Bushwick.
And so you're doing pickup there. Should people
Yep.
order in advance before they go, or can they come
They,
pick
they
up
can
themselves?
come and then, yeah, stop by too. And then now we are doing tasting so that you can taste before you decide if you want to buy a
Oh,
bottle.
amazing.
Yes.
And then also, are you still doing shipping? Because we'll certainly
Yep.
have to get some more bottles once we get through these. So I hope so.
We are doing shipping. Or probably one thing that the people can help us. We are new to the market, and outside of this small community, nobody knows we exist today. And because we didn't do any opening or anything,
Hmm.
we shut down all the PL and everything. So or if you can tell your coworkers, friends in your next Zoom meeting, something like that, oh, by the way, there's a new sake brewery. That'd be probably helpful very much.
100%. I'm going to tell everyone, Brew is here and others assemble, get the word out. And I know that Zoom tastings and things are a thing now, so hopefully
Yes.
people can do their work happy hours with some sake coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds very good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shinobu, for joining us. It was just so great to talk to you, and I'm so excited for your brewery, and I hope to be able to stop by in person soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pierre. It was great, being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.